Hello, welcome to my cake kitchen. My name is Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I also make baking tutorials live, and we do all things baking and decorating on here. So if it's the first time we're meeting, hello there. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm back again. It's been a daily live since Monday. I think we make about we hope to make up to about 5 to 6 lives a week, handing you some baking educational tutorials that you can sit with your pen and paper, take notes, and make the best out of decorating a cake, especially in your own home. So I hope you find some value in today's video. And today we are making a cake. We are going to be decorating a specific kind of cake. The cake was baked yesterday on a previous live, which you can find up here on the channel. And we are going to be decorating this cake. I'll be talking you through all the decorative elements, the items that I'm going to be using. Hopefully we can derive ourselves a good cake that is well presented on a fondant board. Hopefully we'll get all that done, and you'll have yourself a resource on how to decorate or cover a cake in ganache, polish it with some stencil detail, present it on a fondant covered board, include some decorative details, which includes flowers, stenciling, and also some buttercream piping element. So there are different aspects to this cake decorating, but if you stick around, hopefully at the end of this tutorial, you will feel as though you are able to make or at least decorate a cake in a presentable form. So I have a few different things. The cake itself is going to be covered in ganache. I have prepared the ganache already. It's just simple white chocolate ganache, which we are going to be covering this cake with. This cake is a multi-colored in tones of velvet and purple that is going to be used to cover this cake. So I'm going to be talking you through the start of the process and all. But like I said, the cake itself was baked yesterday. It's a red velvet cake. I'm going to get it out now. Right? It's a 4-layered red velvet cake that we baked yesterday that I have filled and stacked, trimmed it to rid of the crust. I have so many videos on this channel discussing the process before you get here, so you want to check that out. The tools I will be using include, we have offset spatula, or some people call it a palette knife, and we have a sharp knife over here, a small spatula, and some scraping tools over here. All these tools, I use them for different sorts of cake, much of which I have documented in video tutorials that you can find on the channel. The cake itself is sitting on a small card over here. It's a 5-inch cake. We are going to be adding details on this cake, but to get to this point, there are specific tutorials where I cover all the aspects of the layering process up until this point, so you trim the cake. There are good reasons for trimming a cake, much of which I have talked in detail about this on this channel a lot. So there is, I say all of that to say, there is enough resource here to guide you in your decorative journey. So take advantage of it. But in the meantime, I know you're all in the chat and you want to say hello to me. Kay, hello there. Kay is a friend to the channel. Great to have you back. I hope you're having a good morning, a good day wherever you are. So join us. I should say a little bit of a disclaimer. If you're in the chat and you want to talk to me, when I'm completing a task, it can be awfully difficult to engage, and I am aware of that because part of the experience is also being able to talk to you. So if I am completing a task and I am quiet and not responding to you, please bear with me. But if you're joining us on replay, hopefully you would find some value, even though I am not talking directly to you. So we're going to go ahead and quickly cover the cake in a layer of ganache. This is the part of the decorating process that is called crumb coating. Crumb coating is essentially the part of the decorating process where you put buttercream or ganache to hold in the crumbs. I'm just using hot water. Buttercream or ganache to kind of seal in the crumbs of the cake so that they don't come through. In the past, I haven't done this well because I am notorious for trying to cut corners. something I don't encourage very much. But it's not a one rule for you and one rule for me. So today I'm going to try and put my best effort to adhere to the rules so that we can get some great results, right? I haven't posted the cake we are decorating here at this moment in time, but hopefully you should find photos of it. This is actually a customer cake, I should say. This is one of the cakes I made that a customer chose. I have had to readapt it slightly just so that there's a level of personalization to it. But this is a design I have created and recreated time and again. So we will see. So you are watching me actually decorate a cake in real time. Normally, if I film long form tutorials, as in the ones that are edited, it means I have the opportunity to correct my own mistakes if I make them. And in the cake decorating process, I kid you not, a lot of mistakes do happen. And sometimes you have the chance to go and fix these. Except the good thing about the live tutorials are that you get to actually see me complete a cake just as I would, even if the cameras were not watching. And by so doing, you get an in-depth view of my own techniques and processes, and hopefully that helps you. Dolly, good afternoon. You know what? Even though, right, Dolly, I'll catch you later. I know you sent me a message. I haven't responded, and that is because once I got in touch with you, I put my phone on do not disturb just so that I can prep for the live. So I literally just saw your message and I'm like, okay, I'll respond to you when I'm done. So hello, lovely to have you back, and I'm so pleased to know all is getting well for you. Dolly is a friend of the channel, and she's recently had her car stolen. I can't imagine the inconvenience, but this is being handled. So nonetheless, it's still inconvenient. So I'm going to scrape around the cake. Right. Now, can you see all the crumbs that are in the cake? Right. So with that done, I'm going to leave the cake as is. Last time I did this, I made the horrible mistake of putting the ganache, the excess ganache scraped around the cake, putting it back in the main ganache thing, and I ended up having oh Lord, look what I've done. Right. So what I've done is I have accidentally dipped a spatula in the main ganache, and now I have cake crumbs in there that I do not want. But I will right. Yep. So I'm gonna leave this cake to cool, chill, set the crumbs on the surface, and then we will come back and cover it in more layers of ganache. But before I do that, let's just wipe the cake round so that we don't carry the crumbs everywhere we go. Right, I'm using a clear acrylic board because by the time this cake is finished decorating, we're going to transfer it. So that is going to go in the fridge to set. And whilst that is happening, I'm going to prep the work surface, which I'm going to wipe down. And I'm going to fix the rest of the ganache that I have here. Because what we definitely do not want is having the ganache go everywhere. But if you have any questions about the decorating process you would like to ask me in the chat, feel free to do that. And if you're joining me for the first time, hello there again. Where are you watching from? And I'm interested to know if you're a baker or you're just here trying to see what a baker does. Right? I'm just wiping my decorative tools because part of the decorating on a live is that I just want to make sure all things are organized. So as you can see, when I was saying that it's really important that you get a separate bowl from where the excess ganache is scraped into. As you can see, this is the excess ganache and you have bits of red velvet crumb everywhere. And the thing with the red velvet crumb is that it will stain and it will go everywhere. So when you're decorating a cake, you want to be very mindful of that. But this can always go back into the cake. And ganache, if you've been here before, I have spoken about the difference between working with ganache and buttercream. Buttercream tends to be very delicate because you need to scrape slowly so you don't take much off on the cake, whereas ganache settles very quickly. So you almost have to work quickly to get the results you need, which is something I aim to do when I'm working with ganache. But today we're working with a mix of different ganache textures and different consistencies, because for the crumb coat or for spreading the ganache on the cake easily, you want to make sure your ganache is spreadable. There's a whole process to it, and I think I keep saying I will have to come back and talk about ganache, but as you can see, this is the consistency here. But if I put that on the side here, this is also ganache. It's colored, but as you can see, that is tanned solid, as in it's set. When we come to using it, I will have to kind of put it in the microwave a little bit to stir it back into a spreadable consistency. That is what I need it for. But we are working with a mixture of ganache and buttercream, because the piping detail, because ganache sets solid, piping it, well, I guess the recipe I am using, piping sets solid if I'm going to pipe. So for that reason, for some decorative detail, I have to resort to buttercream. I'm using Swiss meringue buttercream here. And so for those of you in the chat again, there's Cat from Canada. Hello, Cat. Is it Cat? 3 cats from Canada. Hello, my lovely. How are you? I hope you're well, and thank you for joining me today. Pa Cat. Hello, darling. How are you? And there is also Dilsa from Australia. I am always surprised by the number of people in my chat and where all of you are and where you're joining me from. Always a pleasure. I don't take that for granted because I don't announce my lives, you see. I just show up, just assuming that someone might at some point, even on replay, enjoy this video. So having you in the chat is such a pleasure, and you are welcome to the stream if it's your first time. Whilst we're at it, let me just ask you a small favor, that if you're watching on your phone, on top of the right top, there is a 3 dots there. If you tap on that dot, it should bring down your icons, a few icons. Do like this video at least so that YouTube knows that you're here with me. I would genuinely appreciate that from you, and it's a good way to support the channel. It doesn't cost you a thing. It just goes to say you're supporting a baker out here. Okay, I really appreciate that. But that said, let's get our cake back. And yep, it's set slightly. I don't need this to set really solid to work with. So back again, when you're working with ganache, there's a lot of hot water that goes around, and the simple reason is that ganache sets solid. So when you're working with it, you want to make sure that your tools, your equipment, and everything that you're using is aiding a good process for you. Oh, hello, Dr. Gary. Hiya, Doctor. Should we call you Gary or should we call you Miss Dr. Clinton? Or, anyway, Gary. Gary, pleasure to have you. Welcome to the stream. Is it your first time here? And are you a baker? You'd like to learn a bit more about baking, right? A pleasure. Well, I have so many tutorials on the channel that are set in trying to teach you how to bake or decorate a cake. The processes are broken down into very simplistic, understandable forms, and hopefully that's a starting point for you. Okay, that said, I have gone ahead and spread some ganache on the cake. Again, we have the scraper to work with. And with that, you want to make sure that the edge of the scraper is slightly warm so that it can scrape the ganache. We're still on the face of the crumb coating where I have just applied the second coat for crumb coating the cake. Just making use of the excess ganache, you know. And like I said, the reason why crumb coating is so important is, can you see all the crumbs that have ended up on the cake? If the crumb coating was not done, I mean, you can avoid crumb coating if you really want to. There are ways around it. But I always say it's always best for you to learn the techniques the right way. And then as you grow in confidence and competence, you can adapt it to suit yourself, right? So we're still crumb coating the cake, but if you saw a baker who skips the crumb coating phase, there is good reason for it, and they're probably a little more advanced. Thank you, doctor. They're a little more advanced in their skill. So you know what I always say, baking and decorating is a skill that you can learn your way, right? But have some understanding of the processes that you adopt for yourself. Because if you don't do that and you don't have an understanding of why a certain baker does something, you might end up picking up habits that you don't understand that might not serve you. And I guess that goes for life in general. So I say that to say, most of the time if you've ever been on this channel, I'm very long-winded, okay? And that is because I want to give you thorough explanation. I want to give you context. I want to give you variations of things so that at least you have a detailed view of the explanation or answers I am giving to specific questions. For instance, when we're crumb coating a cake, do all cakes have to be crumb coated? Not necessarily, but there is context to that. For instance, if I hadn't trimmed this cake down, then I wouldn't have to create a lot of crumbs which should be coated out. And again, the purpose for the crumb coating is to seal in all the crumbs. And quickly, as you're looking at the cake, you can see the difference here, that the ganache that has crumbs is looking all red and patchy, but the little part that didn't have the extra addition I added to cover it, that didn't have the red dots and crumbs, as you can see, that is plain here. So the essence of that is, as we develop in the coating of the cake in ganache, the more cleaner and clearer the cake will look. So the essence of crumb coating here is necessitated simply by the fact that I did trim the cake. Why did I trim the cake? There is more reason to it. I will explain that in a moment. But let me just focus on finishing this task, and then we'll pick it up from why a cake needs to be crumb coated, why I am doing this, and why it may not be necessary for you to always crumb coat your cake. But in the meantime, there is enough ganache that has gone round. So the second coat of the crumb coating is done. I'm going to put that back in the fridge to set, and then we'll be talking some more. There we are. But for those of you in the chat, doctor, thank you. There are some first timers out here, and I hope you have a good time. Normally we have a great time here, but I extend my sincerest apologies to you newcomers who don't know much about us here. Over here, we are very task-based. We try to have a lot of fun by talking a lot about the baking and decorating processes, breaking it down so that it's some sort of useful resource for you. But I try to also come back so we can chit-chat and have a laugh about things. But when I am kind of digging into the subject of cake decorating or baking, it can be so subject-centered that it can almost inhibit my ability to stay interacting on the chat. But that's not because I'm ignoring you. That's because I just want to give you the best information so that you get the best experience out of being here. But if it's the first time we're meeting, hello there, I'm Gladys. I love cake. Have I told you that lately? Right? So if you're just joining us, thank you for being here. Richard, you're also an upcoming, and oh, Richard, thank you. Richard, leave Doctor is in there. Doctor, have you baked before? What are some of the things if you haven't baked before, What is the specific thing that you want to learn to bake? Leave that in the chat and then I will answer that, help you with some tips. And Richard, you're an up and coming baker. Have you baked before? If you've already started baking and you're up and coming, are you in training or you're generally self-taught, developing a hobby that you hope will build much skill? Leave all of that in the chat so that we can see how we can support you with tips to see you on your best game out there. There is um Gilam, good morning. Highly favored, good morning. Parkat dot, all of you in the chat there, thank you for being here. So we were talking about, just before the cake went in, we were talking about crumb coating, why it's necessary to crumb coat. Do you have to crumb coat your cake, all cakes? The answer is not necessarily yes or no. You don't, okay, I'll rephrase that. You don't necessarily have to crumb coat your cake, all cakes, right? And the simple reason is that crumb coating, as the name will serve, helps to seal in crumbs that have been developed on the cake. Now, primarily for my cake I was working on, I consciously created the crumbs by trimming the cakes. It was part of my process. So the process determined that I crumb coated the cake. But crumbs can also develop on a cake, not necessarily from just trimming, because trimming almost exposes the extreme aspects of the crumbs of your cake, because you're kind of uncovering the crust of the cake itself, which then will lead to so much crumbs. But crumbs can also be created in their minimal form from handling and passing the cake through torting and layering the cakes, right? So you can avoid all of these sources of crumbs by either baking your cake straight from layers. But even so, handling the cakes is likely to pass on crumbs, but you're talking very minimal crumbs, okay? So if you baked your cake in shallow tin, maybe say an inch or 2 inch tins, and you're stacking larger layers, then you don't have to tort the cake. That is if you're lucky to not have developing domes on your cake. So do you see where I'm going here? I'm pointing out places where crumbs can develop or sources and how you can mitigate that in your process. So let's assume that in your process you baked thicker layers in 2 inch tins and you don't want to tort or layer the cake. Torting is the sort of decorative cake decorating name for when you level and layer your cakes. So for instance, my cakes are layered, and that is simply because I bake 4-inch deep tins and I have to cut them into slices. When we talk layers, just for context, because I understand not everyone is a cake maker here, but happens to be on the channel because they just enjoy me yapping about cakes. Hello there. Right. Let's think about layers as the bricks. The little bricks that are put together, held together by buttercream to form the cake. So a layer of cake is the little bricks of cake. You can call it not slices, because slices is when you then chop the cake up ready to eat. So slices are slightly different, but think about layers as the bricks of the cake that you build to form tiers. So you form two-layered cake, which is a cake that has been sliced into two. So you have two bricks within which you have the buttercream serving as cement to hold the cake. That's one tier cake. And then you go to two tiers where you have layers built into one house, then another house, then the houses are stacked together like a two-story house. But we don't talk stories, we talk tiers in cake language. That said, if you're able to avoid the process that will develop crumbs, then you don't necessarily need to crumb coat your cake. And a quick way to avoid the crumb coating process, which I have tried on this channel before, is to layer or to apply your buttercream or ganache in blob of layers, like literally generously coat the entire cake and then scrape slowly around. I'll probably come back in a future video to teach you how to do that very well. So that said, you don't need to crumb coat all your cake. For me though, the crust of a cake sort of hurts my eye. It's an aesthetic thing. So it's more a preference option. It's not across board. All cake makers don't have to trim their cake, and you don't have to do that. The only reason I do that is because when a cake is cut into, because first of all, I bake deep, and also I don't use baking, what do you call it, baking strips. If you use baking strips are a sort of barrier between the heat source and your pans that will slow down crusting and prevents your deeper browning around your cake. That is crusting of your cake. So for me professionally, when a cake is cut into, I have a way of looking at the cake and going, who bakes this burnt cake? Okay. so so preferably I want to get rid of the burns, right? And that's the only reason why I just enjoy trimming my cakes. But then again, I could nerd in about trimming and why you shouldn't trim your cake. But for this process, it works for me, which is why I employ it. I'm going to check in there and see what you were saying to me so I can answer your question over there. Right? Richard is just teaching himself to bake and is more a hobby baker, and he loves cakes. Just Richard, thank you for being here. I know you will understand the love we feel about cakes. We're the sort of people who go to a party and we don't care about the dance and all the drama that's we're looking at the cake and going, why is this cake wonky? Or this cake could be better, but we're not judging, okay? So well, I can understand that. Highly favored, highly favored. The cake I'm decorating is a red velvet cake. Highly favored says they love baking and would love a baking session from scratch with me. Look, fine. I would say, okay, I have classes that I'm developing behind the scenes for you. Bear with me over there. But I've also done myself a favor by putting myself out here in my raw form. So if you check on the live videos, they are actually just me baking with you in my kitchen. And the only difference is that there's a barrier, which is the screen. Okay, so you can start from there just so that you have some understanding. And if you have questions, I will say if you wanted to take a bake from scratch lesson with me, this is what you should do. Go on the lives, absorb a lot of what is already there, right? And then advance it by taking the class, because then you can ask me specific questions that will answer specific things that you are struggling with. By so doing, you will get more value for yourself than you really will need. Because if you're just hastening to book a class because you're like, oh, she loves baking, or I would love to learn from her, I'd love to welcome you, but I'm more interested in you deriving value from the process. So there's enough resource on the platform for you to absorb and learn. And if you can sit through maybe an hour and 30 minutes of a live session where I took a recipe from start to finish, showed you the result, then you are testing yourself to answer a simple question. Do you love baking as much as you think, or you just want to throw money up the wall? That's just something I'm saying. Now we cat have to go. You'll be back to work. You'll be back. Cat, no problem. Pleasure to have you. Okay. And I'm sure I will see you guys back here soon. So if you're still here with us, thank you for your time. We were crumb coating a cake, which is now in the fridge. Let's check on it and bring it back. Okay. Our cake is sort of covered in ganache. So let's warm our knife. If you wonder why I keep moving the kettle over, it's because I just need the hot water to warm my ganache tools up. Working with ganache means I have to ensure my tools are warm, right? It makes the decorating process a lot easier with ganache. So I've just trimmed the top of the cake over there. Normally, I will be doing this with, say, hot water on a stove or something beside me. But that said, we are continuing with a layer of the cake now. So this time we've moved on from the crumb coat, and then we are going in with a whole layer of cake. So I'm starting at the top here. As you can see, because the because the crumb coating has sealed in the crumbs of the cake, we can just move on and add the layers of ganache so that we can aim for a cleaner look to the cake, right? As you can see, it's covering the top of the cake. And I'm going to get some hot water. Okay. You can also spread the ganache using a spatula. This is just me doing that. But if you're a beginner, you could also just spread the ganache using a piping bag. Just put the ganache in a large piping bag and move it around. I have completed some cake decorating using a similar method here. I think one of my most recent videos saw me do that. So as you can see, we have all the surface covered in ganache. We're going to go around slowly and take off the excess. And as you can see, can you see how clean it is coming off on the cake, right? Right. Again, we go back in, we scrape slowly and gently. Right. The cake covering process is more about adding and taking out, like taking all the excess. And I have spoken about this again and again on the channel. So, right, there we go. Right. Right. Now I have a dent of a line in there, and that's because my scraper is not as I would like it. So I am getting myself a warmer scraper that will do the job better for me. And I am going to scrape all the way around slowly. And if you're a beginner, you don't necessarily have to do this all at once. Think about sectioning the cake into 4 parts, into quarters. You start with one side, a quarter. You stop, you scrape the excess of your scraper. You come back, you do the same again, right? So, okay. Right, so. And right, there you go. One scrape here. We'll take that off. And then one scrape here. There you go, right? And then much of it is done now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the little spots. We're just filling in the little spots so we have a polished, cleaner look. Because this is not the final coating of the cake. We're going to then apply some color to the cake. So at this point, I'm just aiming for the cleanest coating of this one as possible. Right, so, and then this is about the final coating, I hope. Yep, there you go. There. Right. There you go. So that is about how easy I want this to be now for me. Right. I'm going to wipe it down, leave it to set, and then we will reset our work surface again and start this process all over again. Right. So I am just wiping this over, and that's it. This is all done now. I'm going to leave it to set in the fridge. Okay, so look at me. I have gone and I have melted the ganache. See, that is something you should not do because the cake is now in there. It is chilling. And after wiping the work surface, I attempted to melt the ganache, and look, this is not ganache that will work for what we need it for. So we're gonna have to leave it to settle a little bit, but the consistency is still fine. We just leave it on the countertop because we want it to be spreadable, but we do not want it to be runny. That will not be good. In the meantime, I need this ganache now to be white. So I'm going to add some white color, as in frosting whitener in here. This stuff is genius, right? So there you have it. I'm just coloring it to be a little lighter in color, which is what I need the ganache to be for the next layer of covering. Yep, there you have it. So you see how different this appears to what I was using earlier. Okay, that done. Let's check on our cake and see if we will bring it back. There are other colors of ganache here that I would actually like to, let me just, we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is 5 seconds in the microwave. Yep, that's all I needed. 5 seconds. I should have listened to my own advice earlier. So there we have it. We have the right consistency here. That one has melted, which this has melted, which is not great. So I'm gonna have to leave that to set for now. Probably pop that back in the fridge slightly. And our cake is back. It has set on the sides here. And whilst we're on that subject, this is how you get sharp edges. I'm just, yep, taking the top off. And I'm just trying to keep my ganache stuff very warm. Right, that done. We'll have that here. That goes back. And we're going to start to layer the ganache, the white ganache on our cake now. So this is almost like the polishing layer, as in the outer layer of our ganache. Can you see the difference in color? There's the white and then there's the off-white over here. So I'm going to spread that round. Can you see? It's developing into a white colored cake, but we don't want it to be white. Right, so I'm spreading that evenly across, and right, our melted ganache is still not of the consistency we require it for, because this is going to be like an ombre. So this, I told you, you're going to see me actually work in real time. I'm going to have to make my mistakes. I'm going to have to pay for my mistakes one way or another. So the mistake I made earlier by just not waiting for the ganache to... Anyway, I'll let that continue to set. And what I'm going to do is just move on, okay? I'm going to make it work for me. I'm just going to move on from the trouble of that ganache not working at all for me. And that is, yeah, we have, so, yep, have an ombre layer over here. Right. And the bottom is just completely now, even though there are like different tones of colors, I don't intend to make them so distinctive, because I just want the deeper layer to blend all the way up. So there you go. Okay, so we've done that. And the next thing we need here is this. So that is about the texture I want this to be, as in the color. And next thing we do is get this, scrape this. You got to do this slowly. Yep, taking off the first layer over here. And you start from where you last scraped, and then you keep going slowly. Right, so the part where the ganache wasn't settled, can you see that coming off? Right, so I'm gonna have to fill that back up. Covering a cake, whatever medium you employ, takes a lot of patience. It is very skill based, but it's also understanding and recognizing how patient you can be, because much of this is more a repetitive process, which can be very drawn out, boring, because all you see me do is scrape a cake. And if this was a long form video that I had the chance to edit, I'll be editing much of this out, which means you don't get to see the context of time that it takes to get a cleanly polished cake. Thank you, Korean. Thank you very much. Well, the customer chose the color, so I can't even take credit for it, but I appreciate that it's a pretty color. And the blend of color looks very good in terms of the design. Yes, it is very pretty. Thank you. Right, so I'm going back to scrape a bit more, right, so that it is cleaner. So sometimes when you see a long form video where you're like, oh, this baker did this and I went to try it and it didn't work for me, what you are missing is context. Because as you can see, it's just a repetitive thing of cleaning and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So I think we are just this. The thing about covering a cake is this is how, if you get it right, it is fairly easy to do. As you can see, we've only been here since what? I can't even remember now. Just before 1 o'clock, and between just talking you through the process and everything else, we are about 40 minutes in, and this is about the decorating of the cake almost done. Right, there you go. So, but if I was doing this in long form and I had edited it, this part, to say the 10 minutes it takes to repetitively do this, if I edit it to say at most about 40 seconds, then you're missing the context of how much time it takes to actually scrape a cake for it to appear so clean and polished. Right, so there we have it. So there you go. So I'm going to leave this cake to set so I don't ruin it. Because also, one of the things as a cake decorator you need to understand is when to stop. You have to have an understanding of when it's actually, okay, I've done enough now, and doing any more is just going to undo the work that has been done on the cake. So as you can see, we have a 5-inch cake. When it settles, we'll come back and we'll measure how tall it is. But you see, this is the goal I was looking for. I wanted the lighter purple to blend sparingly in a patchy way around the cake without a clear distinction between where the purple starts and where the white starts. I hope that kind of makes sense. So this is the color of the cake generally that is done. We're going to leave that to set completely, and then we'll come back, clean it, and get a very sharp presented cake here. I don't know if I have bits on my face, but if I do, forgive me. It's because I can't see myself. So I'm just going to wipe my work surface right here, and then we're going to transfer the cake back in the fridge to set completely before we do anything else. Right, there you go. So that goes right. Right. Can you please tell Belgian chocolate cake and that compound? So I guess there's a question here for me. Korean, thank you again. And Savita. Savita, I don't understand what you were saying to me. Whipped cream melts. NK. Okay, right. If you're in the chat, someone is asking me in the chat. Who is that? Thank you. Is it Savita and Sonia? Thank you. Now, there is a question in the chat for me about the difference between Belgian chocolate and compound chocolate. I won't pretend I know, right? So perhaps let's all find out together. I know compound chocolate requires tampering, that I know. But Belgian chocolate, I guess Belgian might just be the brand, but let's find out together. Belgian chocolate. The chocolate I use for ganache doesn't need tampering. Compound chocolate. What is compound chocolate? I don't know all things, you know. Compound chocolate. What is compound chocolate? Compound chocolate is a product made from a combination of cocoa, vegetable fat, and sweetness. It is, right? Compound coating. Okay, so it's used as an additive to less expensive chocolate bars. Compound coating. Yep. So I guess the key thing about compound chocolate is because it needs to be, I guess I'm oversimplifying it, but it needs to be tempered. Tempering is when the temperature of the chocolate, it's sort of brought to a specific condition so that it doesn't melt, and it allows a certain sort of fine appearance so it can hold its form, which is then used for molding chocolate things. So I think that is the key thing about compound chocolate. But for the Belgian chocolate, I guess the word Belgian, it's because it adds to the brand. I don't know what it has to do with anything, but I'll probably check and let you know, right? So I use ganache a lot, but it's not compound chocolate. So that is not my area of expertise. And if you've been here, we make a point to tell you what we don't know. We don't pretend we know everything. Ask me most things about cake, and I'm sure I'll find an answer for you. But what is not my ministry, I have no idea about, and that is okay. Okay? All right. So, for those of you in the chat and you're just new and you don't know what we're doing, we are trying to decorate a cake. The cake is done, it's in the fridge. We're trying to reset, and then we will kind of get this cake all sorted. So I'm going to wash my hands, and then we'll be back to see how this kind of goes on. Right. If you have any further questions in the chat for me, please leave them and I will answer them for you. In the meantime, are you all bakers? If you're just joining us, we're making a cake. Right. We are all set for the next phase. Let me just, I've just had some water spill here. Right. We are all set for the next phase of our decorating tasks. Alicia, I'm not baking today. We are decorating a cake that we baked yesterday. How are you today? How are you feeling? I hope you are feeling better, Alicia. I remember, is it 2 days ago when we were talking about you and your boss? Well, I hope you still have a job. Because 2 days ago, Alicia was here with us and she wasn't really having a good day. See, I remember you, Alicia. I do. Alicia wasn't having a good day 2 days ago at all, but I am so happy you're having a good day today. Are you back at work? Working from home still? Right, so. Thank you. Oh, that's so nice. Alicia, 2 days ago, she wasn't having a good day, and I was a little bit concerned for her, but she still has a job and she's doing well, so that's a good thing. Oh, you're in the office today. Your office must be so chill for you to be here with us, or are you on a break? Well, that is just by the way. Our cake is all done now. We're going to try and scrape the top so we can get a clean, sharp top. Now we have a sharp, warm knife that is going to go in and out, and then in again and out. And that's how. Fondant cakes. I don't make a lot of them, but yes, I do occasionally. But if there's no reason for a fondant cake, I don't make them at all. Yeah? Somebody's asking if I make fondant cakes. Right. So, oh, okay. Alicia, that's fine. Hopefully your boss is not here with you. That is the fear. You never know who is watching. And I'm sometimes surprised by the people who tune in to watch what I do. I am always pleasantly surprised. So be careful. That said, okay. So we have a cleanly polished ganache cake here. The top is still like with just a little bit of lip there. I am going to leave that to set completely, and we can come back to some of the decorative detail. We have stencil detailing on the cake with gold highlights. That is really important for this. So we're going to leave this cake to set completely, because if the surface of the cake is not set and we put the gold elements, it will kind of, it will peel, right? So we need this cake to chill completely on the surface. So I'm actually going to move it, not in this fridge, to the other fridge, and I'm going to bring in some decorative elements that we need. So if you're in the chat and you see me disappear on screen, please bear with me. I am back with some decorations that we will need for the cake. But for now, whilst the cake is completely chilling, right, who's that? Lisa. Lisa, you were asking how much I will charge for a cake like this. Okay. The cake itself is a 5-inch. I will answer that in a moment. It's a customer cake, and normally I don't like to discuss customer specific details because they didn't ask to be exposed, right? So if I was making this generically, I will give you a price guide only because if I was making this particular cake for, say, content by itself, then I can discuss the specifics. But because the cake is on camera and it's a customer cake, I can't give you the specific because then I'll be discussing the customer detail. But then, yes, I will give you the range over there and then you can spot the middle. I hope that makes sense. So for instance, okay. So my starting prices for cakes are displayed on my website anyway, so you can see that. So for a 5-inch cake, you're starting from 5-inch. We're talking, there are different levels of 5-inch cake. You have the 5-inch, like 7, 10 people, and then you have the 5-inch 7 that goes up to 15 people, and the 7, that is my smallest 7, and this is for Lisa, who is asking, right? So this is starting from 50 pounds, right? But for a cake that is decorated, so the 50 pounds is like a canvas cake that has nothing on it, and that only gives the customer the option of customization, right? So from me, a realistic price for, say, a 5-inch cake with small piping detail, nothing else but stamped fondant detail, you're looking at about 75 pounds, and it's a 5-inch cake. So not this cake. This is a 5-inch 9. So this is a double barrel cake for that matter. Hello there, SH, right? So Lisa, I am kind of giving you all the context to the cake price in here, just so that you have some understanding. And then I will come to this particular cake and the pricing for you. So you start from 50 pounds, and say if you wanted, say, small buttercream piping detail, think about the heart-shaped cakes that are around on the market these days with just small detailed piping around, not the extravagant what do you call it, Lambert style piping. No, we're talking just piping on the border, a stamp detail on the top fondant. That is just exactly 75 pounds. So that should give you some context to pricing. But the next price category up there is, say, if you wanted a small piping detail, a small selection of flowers, and my decorative elements a guide price is also on the channels, on the website. So specifically, SH, hello there, darling. I am well, thank you, and hope you are well too. Lovely to have you back today. So if we sort of took, say, a 5-inch by 7 to 9 inch with, say, small piping detail with say some customization elements, and we're talking a card style topper themed element, you're looking at a realistic price of, say, £95 for that cake, right? And then if you advance it over that, for a cake like this, you're looking at a realistic price of anything between 115 and £125 mark. The price is somewhere in that middle. It's somewhere starting from 115 to 125. So somewhere in that middle there. And I hope that helps. Okay. So, Lisa, I hope that kind of answers your question over there, right? Right. So that said, I am just going to go ahead, and there are some of you in the chat. SH, I am well, thank you. And yourself? I hope you're having a good day. Imran, how do you make ganache stiff? Imran, there's all sorts of ganache recipes that one can use. So this is a white chocolate ganache that is derived from a ratio of 3 to 1, and you add cream. That's double cream. So this is the board from which the cake will be displayed. It's covered in fondant. Sometimes you can use what do you call it? Masonite board, the white ones. I have the white ones, but they are 10-inch, and sometimes choosing the board also makes a difference to the presentation of the cake. I don't want the board to be too wide because we have a 5-inch cake, which is fairly small. And what I didn't want is a wide 10-inch board with a 5-inch gap on it. So this is a 9-inch board. So because I don't have the masonite board, if you don't know what a masonite board, the masonite board is a white sort of MDF style boards that you can display cake on. They are very convenient to use. There you go. So perhaps at another time, I will come back and I will discuss the subject of pricing in detail. I know sometimes we can be a little bit cagey. I do actually discuss my prices. It's just because this is a customer cake and I just don't, they didn't ask for the cake to be discussed in such specific detail, which is why I couldn't answer that specifically. But maybe perhaps if you stay on the channel, there will be lots of opportunities in the future where I can come back and discuss like specific cakes for you if you like. Yeah. So hope that helps. I am right. There you go. So I see that sometimes people display their cakes on the board without the ribbon trim. It makes for such preference. I prefer it to be covered, but say if you don't. Oh, Lisa, pricing can be awfully difficult, you know? Pricing is so difficult because it's not a one-cut rule for all. Lisa, where are you based? Are you based in the UK or you are in the US? I'm in the UK. And there are so many, how do I say it? There are so many influencing factors to the price of a cake, and it varies from business to business. So Lisa, here's a little bit of reassurance for you. I will say it's okay to gauge your prices from what other people have already priced. It gives you sort of a guide, but don't take it to heart at all. Because you know what? I'll tell you this for nothing. Apparently, on the pricing level, I'm on the higher end of the spectrum. You know why? I've baked for 10 years, but run it as a business for 6. And in the 6 years, my confidence has grown, my skill has improved drastically, and my model as a business has evolved. So I am not just charging for a cake, I am charging for a skill and the setting of a business that I have to pay into. Does that make sense? Now, does it mean that if you're starting, none of that matters? Of course not. But when you're starting, you have a few hurdles and you will make a few mistakes along the way. I didn't get here just by this thing. It's been taking me, look, let's just say I have sold a cake similar to that for £30 before, okay? And that was way back in the years, okay? So just remember that it will feel like it's an uphill climb. And sometimes I also see the variation in prices from the pounds to the dollars. So for instance, for this cake that ranges from the 115 to 125 pound mark, right? In there, if you changed it to pounds, that's if you changed it to dollars, that wouldn't be 135 to, what's the dollar rate? Convert it for me, let's see, so that we can see if that's a realistic price from where you are. Okay. And what do you think? Would you say that is expensive or that is sort of reasonable? Let me know. Okay. But just be reassured that if you don't think you're charging the right price for yourself, don't be too hard on yourself. You will learn quickly and then you'll make your mistakes and then you build your confidence and then you can charge what your value is. And if you mention a price and customers go to you, go, okay, that's all right, and then you will move on. Okay, that's just saying. So that's it. The the cake board on which the cake is to be transferred is done. I'm going to leave it to chill because I covered it in fondant and then I left it in the oven to set. So I'm going to leave it to set whilst we look at the other decorative details. Some of the other decorative details we have are some flowers, right? So what I am going to do, I have found beginner. Right, there's a question in the chat for me. I'll answer you in a moment. Please bear with me, okay? Right. So these are some of the decorative details that I am just prepping right now. I have actually made videos on here, long form videos, where I discuss how you can put decorative details such as flowers on a cake in a food safe way that is beginner friendly. So you want to check those videos out. So essentially what I'm doing is I've taken off the metal bits of the flowers and I'm just going to stick some toothpick in there that will help make this a little food safe. Just prepping the small aspects of the cake. And Danielle is asking me, how would you scale down the recipe of one of your cakes for a multi-pack of set of cakes, like a 10 mini cake base? Right. That's Donnell. Donnell, your question is very specific. And I'll tell you this. I don't derive my recipes in a way that you can scale it. What I do is I derive the batter. So for instance, for some of the quantities of recipes, the basic is that, say, if you took let me say my vanilla cake recipe. The smallest amount of butter that you can derive is, I think, the 325 grams of margarine or so. So for such a quantity, right? That is if you've seen any of my recipes. The smallest amount for me will be the 5-inch 4 layered. But because they bake 4-inch deep, you can start like 5-inch 2 layered, and then they stand at 4 inches tall each. Does that make sense? So you derive the butter and you can spread it across how many tins you want, and then you can repeat the process. If you double the butter, it stretches. So for me, for instance, for the same 5-inch 2 tins, it will bake. You know what? Let me answer that properly in the community post for you. But what I'm saying is that I don't test my butter in terms of how you can scale them. So I couldn't tell you. I can only tell you for, say, 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch, 8-inch pans. Does that make sense? So if you are going to be making, say, mini, um, is it mini cake tins? I don't know what you're doing, but the same quantities bake a specific amount of cupcakes. So probably break down your question for me. But my point is, I can only tell you what I have, how I have tested my recipes and the quantities of what. For instance, the amount that bakes 2 5-inch, 4-inch deep tins, two of those will bake up to about 36 cupcakes. And the same amount will bake 2 6-inch cakes standing, if you start them, standing at 7 inches. Does that make sense? But if you increase the recipe to a recipe and a half, you'll get a 9-inch tall. So I don't know if that answers it very much, answers it for you. But Lisa, yeah, okay. So Lisa appreciates the advice on pricing. Yeah, Lisa, don't be too hard on yourself, because sometimes when you start, I think the context of information here is that um, you're made to feel as though you are charging less. And yes, because cake making is skill based, charging less hurts you, because then it means you're working more for free. But if you're just starting and you are now trying to get customers and you don't have the customer base, it's probably, unpopular opinion, it's probably the price you have to pay. I don't know, just to get your foot in the door. But set specific goals, darling. Set specific. Oh, okay, Donnell, thank you. So set specific goals. Say if you have a set of 10 customers that you want to charge a certain price for, that you know is lowballing yourself, cut it by the 10 person mark. And what you can do, here's a quick tip for you. Use those opportunities, your failing opportunities, to build your information about pricing, because I'll tell you this. If you begin to run it as a fully set business with processes, your business module should inform how much you charge for cakes. For instance, if you have 3 mixers in a kitchen running at the same time with an industrial type oven, baking X amount of cake at a time in your home kitchen, your time efficiency and time management is going to be way less than a home baker who is just starting with 1 mixer at a time baking 1 cake, because then you spend more time, because the amount of time I would use to derive, say, X amount of buttercream is so short. I'll give you some specific figures here. For me, if I was making Swiss meringue buttercream, I can derive, say, about 3 to 4 kilos of buttercream in less than 3 hours, and that includes washing up. And that's because I have this bad boy here, and I have the K mix, and I have this one, so I can get them in. And if you've seen some of my shorts and long form videos, I've literally stood in this kitchen and I've made 240 cupcakes on a day. Okay, and that simply means I have systems and equipment that support quick processes for me, which means I am able to influence how much I charge for specific things. But don't also forget that I am a custom cake maker, so I'm not churning out cakes a lot to so many customers at a point in time. We were talking about the different types of cake businesses. I spoke at length about that yesterday in a video. You can check that out. So my point is, if you end up making it all the way up the ladder, there are some mundane and boring aspects of the business that are hard. Like most bakers will tell you, get a derive yourself what do you an Excel sheet, write your pricing. That hell, that stuff is boring. I won't lie. I don't like doing that stuff. Okay. But if you do it as part of the process as you are going on, it's like taking a walk and scanning your environment and doing random things that are necessary but that are not pressurized. Then you will know your figures before you get to where you need to demand the pricing. And I tell you what, writing down your figures will do, it will inform your confidence, because if you can suddenly see it on paper, you can demand that price. And I hope that kind of makes sense. Per pound of flour. Okay, Alicia, I'm taking a question here. Alicia is asking, she's thinking of starting her own business and wish to do that in a few years. Do you have any advice for an experience? I won't call myself an experienced entrepreneur because I'm failing right in front of you. That's the thing you don't know. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Right. Alicia, I'll tell you this. Go make your mistakes and learn very quickly from them. Okay? If you are waiting to get all things set right for you so you have an understanding of what to do, Alicia, you will never run a business. You will never live your dream. You will never live your dream and you will never get to where you're going. And if I told you what you should do, it will frighten the life out of you and you would end up wanting to replicate my means without recognizing my journey, my experience, my lessons. Okay? So, in all honesty, Alicia, what I will say is there is a blueprint for how to run a successful business. There is. I'm sure I am not the person to hand that to you. You can find that from much more successful people on this platform or so many other platforms, and I learn a lot. What I'll tell you though is that if you hope to go run your business, start very quickly and fail very quickly and know what works for you. Because I could give you a blueprint for what will work, but your experience, for once, let's just bring it down. Your geographical location, your experience, your place of birth, all influences your hopes, aspirations, and objectives for what you want to achieve in your life. So I think it is very presumptive of me if I came to say here and say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, do this and do that, as though the journey is like on a mono scale. It isn't, right? I'm a cake maker. A client I was working with at the time that I loved so very much, and baking and cooking was an activity we undertook. And then I got curious, and I guess that curiosity never stopped, right? So the curiosity ignited some passion, and as the days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months and the months grew over the years, here I am. But I cannot tell you some horrid mistakes that nobody told me. Like for instance, Lisa in the chat is asking about pricing. And then I say I live on this platform, okay? I love this platform. And I see a lot of advice for bakers. When you start get your numbers right, do this and do that. Hell, my dear, that stuff is hard, okay? If you want to sit there with a number and write all your numbers down, I don't like maths, okay? I don't. And Alicia, can I tell you, Lisa, can I tell you something? If you want to derive your quantities, use ChatGPT. Okay? Don't go sit on don't go sit on what do you call it? an Excel sheet. I don't like Excel sheet. They make my heart hurt and my head hurts. Okay? Use ChatGPT. Go tell ChatGPT. ChatGPT, if 1 kilo of butter is $10, how much is 250 grams? ChatGPT will do all of that for you, and then you write it down. That's all. Let's move on. So, Alicia, what I'll tell you is this, that the journey is so unique to you and your experience from the start of your business to when you perceive success. It's completely different for everybody. So take your time, but go make the mistakes. Whatever you want to do, find people in that. First of all, find people who have done it so that they can give you some idea of what you are doing is going to look like. But embrace your individual journey and be okay with failing, because unless your dad is Jeff Bezos, who hands you all his team and people behind you to help you run a business successfully, in which case you will not be the business runner, it will be the team, the expert team behind you. Okay? But if that's not the case, hell, you're going to fail. Oh God, you will fail, and you would wake up and you will question why this is a thing. But it's okay. This platform and a few other ones have made us glamorize success. We are showing up when it's all done. My dear, when I show up at 12 o'clock here, you know when my day started? At 7. It's 4 hours of boring stuff. Mixing buttercream, whipping ganache, showering to look like this. I don't wake up looking like this. But if I made a short video of me with my perfectly curated cake, they're like, oh, she makes perfectly looking cakes. Meanwhile, I have edited all my failures. Hello. So, Alicia, I'm just here to encourage you that if you want to be an entrepreneur, the biggest advice I'll give you, failing is part of the process. There is no way around it. Fail fast, be quick, because you are never, there is something that failing in the process is going to tell you. For instance, I'll give you a personal example of myself. When I started cake making, first of all, I didn't know I would get here. I didn't know I will enjoy what I'm doing here with you guys. What I knew was that I like to make cakes, pretty looking cakes. And boy, from my first cake to probably my 10th cake, it was a lot of experiences, learning. And then very quickly, I realized that, okay, I was making fondant cakes for £40. Hell, how crazy is that? And then I learned very quickly, whilst fondant gives me a medium of polished cake, my customers didn't want to pay for that because it wasn't value for them. Could I find another way? So by just starting with making cakes, I learned the different forms of cakes, which is ganache, buttercream, and all the aspects. But as I transitioned into a business, I had to learn what the customer is asking for. And even within that niche, I had to determine what fed my passion, because I didn't want to be this person who was just churning cakes out that didn't have any artistic elements to it. Does that make sense? And nobody could have handed me a book to say, this is what you would love. That is only part of my experience and the journey. So as I realized what I enjoyed in the process, I focused on what I could also offer to the customer. And then it became this small blend of, okay, learning and recognizing and refining. Then COVID happened. When I started, I thought I wanted a market store. Believe me, I spent all my game plan was to develop recipes that derived good bakes with great mouthfeel so that I can be a market store. Like I will be in an open market space where I have customers. And I even went and got an open market store. Okay, I had a market store for a minute. And guess what happened? Oh God, I'll have to come back and tell you that story. I was excited on the Saturdays, except I wanted the bakes to be fresh. I was obsessed about fresh baking. And at the time, I didn't have all the equipment I had here. So with my one mixer, guess what I would do? I would bake all night. I will start the evening of Friday about 4 p.m. and I'll bake all night. And morning, 8 o'clock, I have to be at the market for 9 with no sleep. Now, if I was charging myself, if I was paying myself per hour, I can tell you right now that in 2019 at the market stall, I never made per hour salary. Okay. I was losing money while standing at a market stall on a 24-hour cycle. Can you imagine that? The market stall cost me, I think, 25, £30 to hire because it was subsidized by the council. And I was stood there. And if I counted the shopping time, the baking, I didn't get customers buying enough. Like I would go, let me give you I'm giving you real information here. I will go to the market, and at the end of the market day, I spent, let's say, £260 on ingredients and everything, and I would sell about £80 or £70 worth of cake slices, and I had no outlet to dispose of the excess bakes. And that was part of the learning back in 2019. And then the worst thing happened where I would go to the market, or the night before. The market was an open market, so we didn't have any insurance or any protection against weather. And if you're in Europe or in the UK specifically, you know how inconsistent our weather can be. So there was a specific day where I had baked all of these goods, and the morning came, and I remember it very well. They said it was called Storm Clement, a bit like, nothing like a tornado or hurricane in the US, but it was such a bad windy weather and rain that the market stall had to cancel in the morning. And mind you, I had baked all of these things to go to the market, and suddenly the amount of money I spent baking, which was about £300, plus the time of the baking throughout the night, I had all these bakes in front of me, and I didn't have an outlet to dispose of them. I couldn't even have friends to eat all of them enough quickly for me, right? Someone would say, well, I had to kind of maybe insure myself, or probably have a system that would have offset this. No, there was no way I would have known, because first of all, I went and got an open market. Now I realize that markets are seasonal. If you want a market, unless you already have a customer base. Today, if I decided to go to a market, it would be, I would create it as a meet app or something, so that I know I already have people set to come, instead of just generically showing up on a market stall that you have no business being there for. Do you see what I'm saying? But I had to fail quickly. And guess what? That was 2019. We're in 2024. And I wouldn't even go for a market store anymore. I don't want it. If I were to go for a market store, it won't be a market store. If I was to go for a shop front, it would be a specific kind of shop front that is optimized with different services that will make sense for me. And I had to fail. And boy, did I give up on the market stall. I didn't. Back in 2021, I was actually being offered a shop in a very large shopping center around where I live, right? And we were just before we signed off on the contract, we found that there were some hygiene, plumbing issues that the whole thing fell through. I didn't give up. I still was obsessed with having a shop. Then I had a trial run, a 2-week trial run for a shop, a new shop, half an hour away. By the time I finished that 2-week Christmas shop period, I realized that I have no business running a shop. But if somebody had told me I didn't need a shop, I wouldn't have believed them, because I had to fail from the experience. And if I tell you today I don't want a shop, I will tell you from my experience. As a result, if you brought me a specific problem that you were looking to face in your business, I will be able to point out where you should try and problem solve to kind of offset any issues that may arise. But I could never advise you against making certain decisions, because you have to learn for yourself. And on that note, that's enough of me yapping. let's get on to cake decorating. Okay, there is Nengi in the chat. Nengi, hi darling. Right, there are more questions coming my way about setting up. Alicia, Lisa, you can do, but then again, there's context. Lisa is asking if she can use social media to get customers around. I think one of the biggest lies we got told about social media, it's a whole job. Unpopular opinion, it's a whole job. Nengi darling, how are you today? Having a social media account and running it successfully to get customers is a whole job that we don't get told about. When you see people posting on their social media and doing social media stuff, we all want to be a part of it. We all want to post our stuff. But having a social media account, posting consistently so you can broaden your presence and invite customers is a job, right? Can you find me getting so animated and passionate? Okay. So, with that intention in mind, here's how I would advise you. Lisa, how long have you been in business? How long? If you tell me or give us a gauge of how long. Some people have baked forever, but once they transition to a business, they find out the experience is different. How long have you been in business? Tell me, and I'll see what I'll have to say about that. When you're starting to run a business, okay, you are already overwhelmed. That is the part we don't get told a lot. Okay, you are one person who has developed an art for something you enjoy, you want to bring to the world. Anything else is sort of anything else you don't enjoy is a stumbling block to the thing that you so enjoy. So I would say the people who have succeeded at social media don't necessarily have to love it, but to be extremely successful is something people are passionate about. Okay? That will determine your success. But some of the things you do or have to embrace are just part of the course, and you have to make peace with that. With that said, Lisa says she's been doing this for a year. So for a year, I imagine you are already overwhelmed. There are a lot to learn. If you're asking me about pricing, it means you're still trying to gauge where your market audience is. So you know what? If you have to start with social media, right? Determine which social media platform you as a baker love. I'll tell you that for nothing. I have tried and failed at several social media platforms. And this is where I will say this is based in my own experience. It doesn't have to apply to you, but I hope there is something you can take from this, right? If you are on social media right now, determine what social media platform you enjoy using, you enjoy interacting on, and start from there. So instead of giving you the generic advice of if you're a baker, just go and start a social media account. What's your preferred social media account of use? Do you like Instagram? Do you like TikTok? Do you like Facebook? Where? Facebook is dead to me. Okay. I have Facebook accounts. I don't use them. I don't even remember what my passwords are, right? But I haven't loved Instagram. I'll tell you why. I have a personal relationship with Instagram it's a love-hate. I hate Instagram because it's too visual and it's too distracting from my ADHD mind. I just cannot. Because I'm going to Instagram to find inspiration. I'll find myself scrolling at the beautiful cake photos, and 2 hours later, I have done nothing. Okay? Oh, okay. Highly favored. I'll answer you in a moment. Bear with me. So I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. Plus, because Instagram is so curated and super polished, it makes me anxious. So not only is it distracting, it is anxiety inducing for me. So imagine if my business coach told me to show up on Instagram and be strict and rigid about it. I don't know about anybody who is sat on their computer specifically designing things for Instagram. that they find fun if they are not passionate about marketing, right? So I do not like Instagram. I have tried, it's not working. Okay. Plus, the what is it called? Is it the algorithm? It keeps changing on Instagram. You could be here for a year posting, but apparently you have to do engagement. So I'm only on Instagram to say hi to the people I care about and keep it pushing. Okay, let's talk about TikTok. TikTok is addictive. Oh my God. TikTok is addictive. Like I could be scrolling on TikTok and some random stories will be shooting at my face and I'll be like, okay, let's stop here. It's like I'm going to the market store, but I am stopping at so many stops before I get to my destination. I like TikTok, but it's equally distracting. I have only ever succeeded at one social media platform, and that is where you are watching me. Because I live on YouTube. I watch YouTube content. I use YouTube to teach me YouTube. If I'm not doing this for myself, I'm over there learning. YouTube helps me in all aspects of my life, actually. So it just made sense. But even so, when I started YouTube, I didn't know I would end up here with you. Does that make sense? I had to find what is exciting for me. I started with long form content, and then I realized that I didn't have 30 hours to make one video. And I didn't like short form. I don't like shorts. I'm a teacher by nature. I'm long winded. I'm so explanation centered. I am so subject centered. I want to give you more than you have asked of me. I can't do that in 60 seconds. I can't. But I will join the 60-second team just because it puts me out there. It forces the interaction. It puts me in the system. But I don't care for short form content. Like I don't care if you've watched my content, you'll see I haven't created a trendy video. Maybe I have made the recent reference I made to a trend was Cam Newton, but I was talking about cakes. I haven't made a trendy video because I do not care to fall into the gimmicks. And that's because I enjoy teaching. So the only reason I'm on this platform is because I am tapping into something I would still be doing even if they're wearing cameras on. So it makes it easy for me. It takes away the tension. Do I like it every day? Hell no. This morning I didn't want to get out of bed. I wanted to lay down, drink cups of tea, and do Mrs. Doolittle. But back to your question, Lisa. Lisa, I could answer all your questions here, but I think if you don't mind, drop me an email. I'll schedule a Zoom with you and have a chat with you, okay? If that will help you. That is because when I started, I just wanted the reassurance and I never got that. So if you go to my homepage, there is a link to my website, right? The website is optimized for customers ordering cake. Just leave question or Lisa question, and then just make a reference to this chat here. Drop me an email and I'll schedule a chat with you, okay? Just so that it reassures you, because I can see you have some trouble spots here that you may probably require a little hand holding, and I don't mind. I can do that to help a sister and a friend. And yeah, a year ago, 10 years ago, if I had had that, I probably would have avoided some of the huge mistakes I made along the way. But highly favored has a question here. Let me go back and see. Please, can you share your Instagram account? I'm from the UK too and have to order a cake and cupcakes. Right. Mohammed, I am on Instagram, but I don't use Instagram a lot. If you want to make an order, check on my website. The website link is on my home, the YouTube homepage. If you check the about, you will see a link straight to my website or any of my videos. If you check the description box, there is a link to how to find me. You should be able to put in an order over there. I'm still looking for highly favored. Your question, highly favored. Alicia, when I first started, I didn't like the look of a cake, I'd put it in the bin after watching cake shows. Right. Ona. I can't pronounce the name. Forgive me for that. But yes, when you watch cake shows and you see cake fails, you realize that okay. And highly favored. Can I ask? We use okay. You Aussies use pounds. How much baking powder and butter is used per pound of flour? Hmm. Um, that would be highly favored. The pound. You know what? I use the weight, the grams, kilograms. I can't pretend I know anything about the pounds. I can't tell you. But I will say for a generalized answer, it depends on the recipe. There is no specific measurement that goes with a certain pound unless you're deriving a pound cake where all the ingredients measure a pound in weight, and then perhaps you need half a tablespoonful. I don't know. Here's where I'll say pounds and cups are not my ministry. And I'm happy to say that out loud. Okay, now let's go get the cake that we need to decorate. We've been going on for a little while, so bear with me. I'm going to go get that quickly. Right, our cake is back. It's all chilled. Nengi, you, those of you in the chat, oh, that's a lot. Right. Right, so let's get the top of our cake all clean. Right, we've got that done now. Right, I didn't let this settle. Right, there you go. Right, so there you have the cake all done. We have the piping detail. So here, the stencil detail. The stencil is not going to go all around the entire cake. The stencil is just portions of the cake, which is why I haven't tightened it at all. What I am just going to do is look for the consistency. You know what? Okay, I could actually do well by, this is just a lazy way of doing this. And if it doesn't work, I have no one to blame but myself, right? So first of all, I'm going to get my see, that's something that happens if you don't get your stencil attached right. That's just a lazy way of stenciling, but the customer requested a specific detail on the cake that I have to achieve with stenciling. So what we're going to do is we've attached the stencil. I'm just going to spread this slightly around. It's because the stencil detail, as it appears on the cake, is very sparring. It's not very clean. So I have just attached the stencil slightly there, and I'm just spreading the ganache around. And with that done, I'm going to go in with some painting detail in the stencil so that you can see. I have completed cake designs here with stenciling. So if you want to see more about stenciling a cake, do check that out. Right, so what I'm doing is I'm just painting over the stencil detail. You want to make sure that your paints can spread easily and it's not liquidy, because if it's too liquid, it will bleed in the stencil detail. And like I said, The stencil is only a specific detail that is required on the cake and not the entire cake. The cake is not completely covered in the stencil. The stencil detail is just only little. So what I'm going to do is now let's peel it off slowly and you will see. Right? Right. So can you see the stencil detail? So you can see white bits, you can see the gold bits, and that is the detail that appears on the cake. It's only a portion on the cake. So that's about all I need, because that's supposed to be on the front of the cake, if you like, or an aspect of the cake. So when you stencil a cake like this, it's very, as you can see, I don't know if you can see the detail as cleanly. I can't see it very well on the thing here, but as you can see, the diamond detail over there was really important to the customer, right? So what you should do when you do stenciling and you rip the stencil off is give it a clean. I would normally run it under warm water. And then whilst I'm going to do that, I'm also going to let the cake set, because if you come back to reapply stencil on the cake and this part hasn't set, you're going to peel that off. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to set whilst I clean the stencil so that we can do some aspects of the back. But like I said, the cake is going to be covered in buttercream piping detail. There's going to be flowers. So much of it will be covered, but I just wanted a clean presentation of stencil around the cake, right? So that goes back in here. And the next thing, we're getting the stencil washed. Because if you don't get your stencil cleaned, the residue would only bleed back on the cake when you go back to using it, right? So the gold is sometimes a little difficult to clean off, but you need just a lot more washing up liquid, if you like. Let's see. And I'm just making sure that it is free of any. This is actually a very flimsy stencil that I picked up from, I think, Amazon, I believe. But you can get some real good quality stencils from, say, La Cupella and Caking It Up. I have complained about the texture of the Caking It Up stencils over here, and it's neither here nor there. And much of it is set in my own preferences as well. But there are stencil providers and for cake decorating that you can get from around the place, and hopefully that should serve you. That said, we're going to check on our cake, bring it back so we can stencil the other parts of the cake as well. Right. Right, the cake is back, and we're going to stencil the back of the cake. Like I said, it's not going to be a clean stenciling. So yet again, I'm just going to wrap this around over here. Make sure your stencil is sitting flush on the surface with no gaps. If there are gaps, it's going to show through. So I'm just going to sparingly just spread this over, and it will create the stencil pattern for me. And what I am going to do is get a, remember, ganache sets quickly. So if you don't work quickly, it will just set, and it's going to take a lot of effort to scrape it clean. But I'm using a warm scraper here, right? So there you have it. There you go. And you want to be careful also, because as you scrape it, likely to scrape the cake surface, and you really don't want that drama, right? So I'm going to go back in again with some painting. I'm not trying to paint it so cleanly gold, just highlights here and there. And I actually want the white bits to keep showing on the cake, if you like. So, yeah, there you go. It's aspiring like a spotty kind of painting, if you like. And we are going to peel that off. Right. And here you go. And that is the stenciling done over there. Yeah, so our cake is stenciled on the bottom side. I actually fancied stenciling the top here just to give it a sort of gold highlight, but that will be too much detail. Sometimes as a cake decorator, you should be able to have an eye for gauging whether the detail is overly done and you can scale back, or you can add more. And in this case, I just wanted to highlight that detail over here, and that is it, done essentially for the stenciling. So what I am going to do is we're going to leave this cake to set completely, and then we can transfer the cake. But I think we've been going for a little while now, right? So let's see. Right, let's leave this cake. Precious, thank you. Precious is actually a friend of mine, and Precious is out here trying to stalk me. What are you doing here, friend? Okay. Hi, Precious. Lisa, Lisa, and highly favored Alicia, and all of you in the chat. We have quite a bit of work to do, so let me just get a move on, right? But if you have questions in there, leave them for me. And Precious asking me to be a lecturer. Precious, I met you in school. What did you think I was doing over there? Okay. That's Precious is a friend of mine, and she's in the chat, and she says I should go and be a lecturer in a catering school. Why should I go to a classroom when I have a larger platform out here, Precious? If I went and I had a 9-to-5 job as a lecturer in a classroom, the people out here will be missing out, okay? So I think the Lord, in his infinite wisdom, has found a way to bring me back to the thing that I have been called to do. And that is just by the way, okay? Nengi, tell my friend to go away. Okay, but for those of you in the chat, Alicia, Lisa, and the rest of you who are joining me today, thank you for your questions. It was so insightful to sort of have an understanding of some of the struggles. But if you're just a beginner baker, or you're just starting on your journey and you're not sure what to do, don't be disheartened. You'll get there. As long as you wake up every day and will yourself and work towards your goal, it's okay. We are all failing out here. Okay, we are all failing out here. We're just not telling you. If you went and spoke to my accountant, you probably have a different view of what my life is. I'm so disorganized. Okay, no. Let's just say I like what I like, and what I don't like, I don't like. But then when you're running a business, you don't get to choose. Tell Precious to go away. Lisa, you're the real one. Because what Precious is trying to do is Precious is trying to steer me away from you guys. And imagine if I had a 9-to-5, I'd be in a classroom now. And then you will see. And then no one can answer your questions for you. So, Lisa, tell Precious to go far away. Tell her she's not welcome here. Oh dear, Precious, it's great to have you. Where are you and what are you doing? Nengi. Now look at all of you having a fight over where I should be. Okay? I'm sure the Lord in his wisdom knows where I should be, and I believe I am exactly where I should be. Perhaps if he moves me away, he will make another way for me. But I believe I'm where I am exactly supposed to be. And I'm just excited to be here. Whilst we're at it, if you haven't liked the video, I've given you so much value, haven't I? I've given you value about how to decorate a cake. I've brought you the tea about how to manage your business, how you're going to fail so hard before you succeed. I have given you the tea about my own failures. So if you haven't liked the video, you either hate watching me to fail, and I know I'm not failing. No, I'm kidding. But do like the video so that if you're finding value in this video and you think you have gotten something out of it, don't withhold the opportunity for someone else to learn something new. Okay. So like the video and do enjoy, join our community here. We are mad. We're like a box of frogs. We are bonkers. Harry would say. Harry. Hi, Harry. Where is he? Harry says the American Constitution is bonkers, but we're not talking about Harry today. Harry tends to invite a lot of controversy, okay? So let's just leave Harry over there. But that is just by the way. We are mad over here. We talk a lot, we chit chat, and we have great time. But above all, we want you to get as much value in your cake decorating journey and all things baking. So whether you're baking, today we are not baking, today we are decorating a cake. But yesterday we were baking, and the days before and all that. Sometimes I'm here just organizing in my kitchen, and I'm talking to you. So whatever I'm doing out here, I just want you to be a part of it, and I hope you continue to derive as much value in your own life, in your business, and whatever else that looks like. But thank you for indulging my passions, because me, I'm living my dream. Okay? That aside, I have an enemy in the chat. The enemy called Precious. Thank you. Right, now let's go have a look at our cake in there. Our cake is set, so perhaps let's get it ready for decoration. I am sort of tempted to kind of end the stream and come back, but I'm not going to do that. Let's just push through and get this done, because this is a whole day's job. I've been here since 9 a.m. when I saw my little guy go off to school, and I started the prep work. Now we have some macarons here. I didn't make them, but they are added as decorative elements for this cake. So I am just going to paint them gold because the customer required them to be gold on their cake. So these are some macarons that I am going to paint for the customer. So there's 6 of those, and then we will put those back. I picked these from Costco actually. Right. And by the way, if you're in there, and pray for your business. I mean, everybody. Now, this is the part of the conversation that gets a little bit like woo-woo, isn't it? But you know what? I'm Christian, okay? I don't try to evangelize for you to convert to Christianity, but I'm Christian. So if you have hopes of building a business and succeeding at it, you know, the promise of the Lord is so real for you in your life that if you seek of him what his plans for you are, and you know what? There is nothing that ever beats reading the Bible. I'm talking to my Christian people, not all of you. I'm not trying to alienate some of you who don't have that belief. But for those of you, my Christian people, all there, right? There is nothing that beats the principles in a Bible that teaches you hard work, commitment, building, being trustworthy, and all the things that you need to succeed at a business. In fact, one of my favorite quotations is a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the arms. Can someone finish that for me? Precious, are you leaving? Yeah. Thank you, Precious. Korean, do you make? Oh no, Korean, I don't make them. I buy them from M&S sometimes, or I pick them from what do you call it? Costco when I go shopping on there. I haven't been in a while. Oh, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm trying to paint the macarons, and yeah. So a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the arms, and poverty will creep on you like yeah. That is one of my and also in Proverbs, the verse that says, I'm going to butcher it, but if you know it, put it in there for me. So, the gift of a man will make room for them. See what I mean? So if you know your gift and you serve diligently with your gift, believe me, it will make room for you. I think on social, now I'm saying a lot too much, right? On social media, we are made to glamorize, oh, charge your friends. There is no free gifts in business. You should always, my dear, I can tell you, not everything is about money. And I actually want to make some money. Unpopular opinion. Okay. Okay. Let's get on to cake decorating. Okay. That's the reason why we are all here. Right. I should have kept these macaroons frozen, and I should be doing this with gloves, but the gloves are a little further away from reach right now, and I can't reach them. So I am just attempting to paint these macaroons without the necessary tools. But as you can see, that's how you paint them, okay? That's how you paint them. But I'm going to leave the rest for now, right? These are, oh God, one sec. You know what? Every brand or stuff that I am using, I will leave in the community post, right? So join the chat here, but check our community post. I will post all of those there for you, because I find that the sometimes when I'm asked the last questions, I can't remember specific details, and I don't want to give you the wrong information. So I'm so sorry. I will post detailed information in the description box for you when I'm done, or I'll leave photos up there in the community post where necessary. Okay, right. So let's go back to decorative details. Some of the decorative details. Some of the decorative details we have here are an acrylic, right? I think I need to wash my hands because it's getting sticky. And then there is there is an acrylic name tag. I'll show you how you can attach this to the front of a cake with a skewer. There is a disc here. It is very personalized. And there is a 40th birthday. So perhaps because there's a lot to put on the cake, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do as much of the decorative details for you to see. And then we will see how this goes. Perhaps because I started this and the goal was to decorate the cake for you to see, I kind of feel like even as time is moving against me, I still have to honor that promise. It's important to me. So let me wash my hands, get the cake out, we'll transfer it onto a board, and then we can decorate it very quickly. But if you're just joining us, hello there. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. We always have fun here. We laugh a lot. We are a very supportive community of people. Oh my goodness, the love I have enjoyed with all of you. Now you can see I've just moved my turntable away and I've put the board on here. The simple reason I am doing that is because the turntable, I need this cake to go on a surface to be steady. If I use the turntable, I won't be able to determine the front and the back of the cake. So you want to be able to get a steady surface where you can place your cake. So I'm going to start with a dash of ganache in the middle. And that is just to keep the cake in the middle. Now, there is no clear way that I move the cake. Some days you can put a straw and a dowel in it. Some days you can put a straw and a dowel, except the dowel is just, the dowel has to be tall. So you're probably going to see me struggle. You're going to see me struggle, but I live for those moments anyway. They are very realistic moments where you get to see that some of the finely produced scenes you see in clips and reels are not exactly always real. Cakes are falling and tumbling over. You have no idea, my sister. Anyway, there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm this knife, and the only way I can do that is make sure the entire blade settles on the bottom of this tin here. That's the closest thing I found anyway. So yeah, and I'm warming the blade of the knife. We have ganache on here, and what we are going to do, I'm going to move the cake onto a board, right? And on, bear with me. Right, you'll see what this is going to be used for, right? So on the board, you will see the knife is very sharp. I'm going to put it under this cake so I can lift it. Now, this is greaseproof paper. My hands are warm. If I don't do this, my warm hands will warm the cake. It will peel. So I'm going to do this really quickly. As you can see, there's the front and the back of the cake. The back is where the pins are holding the ribbon. So I'm just going to lift the cake quickly off from the surface and land it on here. And that's it. Right? The cake has now transferred, and that's it. Right? Now, if I want to position it, the reason why I have the greaseproof paper is to serve as a barrier so I don't touch the cake, because otherwise I'll leave an imprint. But there you go. So I have peeled it, and the cake is settled, and that's it. Right? Now that that is done, we can move the cake back onto our surface here, right? And over here, if I didn't have piping detail, you would want to put small amount of ganache in there to clean it up. But I am going to be covering that part with buttercream detail. So this is what we're going to do. I am just going to stick this on the bottom and run it around just so that we have a clean board to cake surface. So the cake is on the board, transferred, we are done, right? So if the decorative details here involve having some piping details. So what I am probably going to do is I'm going to just in a minimal way cover it in the flower details so that you can see the minimalistic detail, and then we will leave it as that. I'll complete the decorative details later, and then I'll leave you photos because time is running against me. But I have brought you to match of how this cake has to be decorated, if you like. So I'm just going to move this and back on my work table, or in fact I'm going to leave that here, because if you're decorating a cake with flowers, you want to make sure that your cake is not moving on the surface. So the goal here is to ensure my cake is not moving. So if I were to put the flowers on this cake, I'll show you what I'm going to do in a moment. I'll start with a small fondant bowl, and I know the back of my cake, and I know I'm just going to move out of shot a little bit, but if you can hear me, that should be fine. So I'm just going to stay my hands on here just so that you can continue to see, because I need to see an angle of Remember, there's a small gap here, but I'm not worried about that just yet. In fact, right. So what I am just going to fill out some piping decorations in here. Right. Right. So some of the piping detail, I am just piping a right. Right. So what I can also do is I think next time, the lesson I'm learning very quickly is whilst I want to do a detailed decorating tutorial all the time, perhaps the lesson here is to do it in small parts so that we have, say, a 3-part series from start to finish. Right. Right. So I'm just covering the back of the cake spotly with buttercream piping detail. And with that done, I'm going to go in with some spotty. Yeah. Yeah. Then we have, you'll see how this makes sense in a moment. Okay. Right. Right. I have to be careful that my hands are clean at all times, right? And my work table is a mess. But like I said, the floral decorations start with a corner here. Where I can attach the fondant. Now, if you ask me why I'm using fondant in the corner, it serves as a barrier into which the flowers are pinned so that it's not going straight into the cake. What that helps to ensure that you don't poke into your cake, and it also leaves room for correction if you want to correct any errors of your floral arrangement. That said, where is the flowers? Right, the flowers are right behind me, but that's not just the flowers I have. I also have a selection of flowers here that will go in, but I'm not going to be using that now. Plus, right. Right, so there is specific details that are on this cake that I need to get right. Look at me. Look, I have gold balls going everywhere. Right, so I'm just putting some, right. Okay, and then we're going to have, yeah. When you're watching this on the live, it doesn't look like much, but when the cake is done and it's photographed with all the detail, you see a beautifully well presented cake. And this is a cake to serve just 10 people, except, well, it is serving 10, except this is made for a minimum of 15. So you will never be short for cake. I mean, there's extra servings to go round. So these are just gold balls that are added to enhance the detail on the cake. Right. For the flowers, we have the palm leaf. And I don't intend to leave the palm leaf longer than it needs to be. So I am just pulling that off. There's the palm leaf here. But I'm going to wrap the palm leaf over with floral tape so that it's also a barrier to prevent the leaf stalk from going straight into the cake. So I'm putting some, and you can do that by putting what do you call it, a floral pin. Yeah, so we have, there you go, which is why the fondant is there in the first place. Can you see? Right, so to do the decorations, I am starting with the toothpick, which I am pinning. So this is not going directly into the cake itself, it's going into the fondant, which then sometimes it's hard to pin it in, especially when the fondant is not soft, but it also means I can mold that into shape, and you can then pin your first flower there. So that's the whole point of the fondant, right? To serve as a barrier. It also helps to lift the cake. So there you go. And over here, right, so we have that over there, and I have some dried flowers. I'm not going to do the dried flowers just yet because that's just going to take extra detail. But if you were going to just decorate a cake simply just for a birthday, can you tell me this doesn't work? Right? And then with that, we can also have the macarons. Right, we can have the macaron detail here somewhere. And one here. Right? But there's going to be more macarons going on the cake essentially. And some of the flowers and decorative details are going to be added when I'm done. But essentially, I will post the inspiration of the cake photo that the customer chose. It's my own cake, and the photo of the cake when it's all done with all the elements, so that you can get to see a side-by-side photo of the said cake and some of the adaptations I have made. But essentially, that is the cake. In its simplistic form, this should be the cake we are aiming for, but there is still more detail to add to it. I can't do all of that now. We've been going for a little over 2 hours now, and I just want the stream to be digestible so you can enjoy it. So I'll leave the decoration detail as that over here, and then if you have further questions, leave them in the chat for me. Okay. Yes, Nengi, don't be cheeky. Yes, golden balls. I'm not the one married to him. Golden balls. That's yeah, reference to a famous somebody whose partner says they have golden balls. Okay, all right. That is just by the way. And that's the cake we made. So I'm just going to leave the cake on screen a little bit whilst I kind of like tidy around myself, and just so that we can get the workspace all done. And but if you have further questions, there is Lady Sukama, there is Quivert's World. Nengi is still here with us. Quivert, is it? Has your cake been previously frozen or refrigerated? What do you mean? Is it the cake layers or the cake itself? The cake itself, for the process, Lady Quivet, answering your question, for the process, it has to be refrigerated intermittently to sort of let the cake set so that we can get the shape of the cake and the form of the cake, as you can see. So yes, but for the cake itself, we baked it yesterday. I didn't freeze it. I left it on a countertop. And this is what we have achieved. Chantilly is back. Chantilly, how are you? How is your day at work? Are you having a good time? Right? J, J, J. I can't call the entire name and I don't want to butcher it. Hi there. Thank you. So that's the cake that we made today. I hope really above all else you've been able to learn some new techniques here that will help you in your own decorating journey. If you have found some value in this video, do consider liking the video. Come on then, all of you. If you haven't already liked the video and you don't know how to do that, just click on the top right screen. On the top right screen, there's 3 dots up there. If you tap on it, it should give you a drop down menu of options there. Come on, like the video so YouTube knows that I taught you something, right? Lily. Oh, Lily, yes, I do have vanilla cake recipes. And you know what's even better about the recipes? They're all here on the channel. You can find them in long form, but if you want to get the details around the selection of ingredients and the result, check the live videos. I have live videos where I have undertaken the baking process, my own vanilla cake recipes. I have adapted it. So check in the live format. Go all the way down to vanilla cake with I made different. You know what, let me put this cake away before it loses form. I'll bring it back shortly when we're done. Okay, now the flour is so tall it won't fit in the cakes, it won't fit in the fridge. So let me go and, you know what, let me not bother, I'll do that later. I have a very busy work surface. Okay, I'm working in a rather tight spaced kitchen, aka also known as a small kitchen. Gosh, how did I do this? Right. Okay, there we are. So let's just leave this to set over here whilst we are discussing this subject of cake. So if you check on the live videos, you will see general formats where I actually undertake the baking of my own recipes and I talk you through ingredient options, why I choose those ingredients, what you can do, and I offer you all the detailed information about it. But you can also find the same recipes in long form, except in the long form, as in videos, they are edited. So sometimes it lacks a bit of context. So if you want to know about my cake recipes, check the live format. You'll see me baking the entire cake right on camera, and then you see the result. So you get to make a decision for yourself. And when I adapted, I even took my own recipe that I adapted in several variations using different flour, and I give you my actual live reaction of the flour and how it impacts the recipes. So Lily, I hope that is helpful for you. Okay. In terms of texture, let me just add context. In terms of texture, I think sometimes the idea of a fluffy cake or a fluffy, delicate textured cake is misrepresented, because if you want a cake that is optimized for stacking and building in a cake form, you'll need some sort of cake that has form and structure to it. But if you compare that form to, say, a Genoese sponge, which is super light and in texture, you will be comparing apples and oranges. Does that make sense? So sometimes a cake is not necessarily dense. It doesn't have to be as dense as, say, a mud cake or a heavily dense cake. Sometimes you have to look for the ingredients that influences the outcome of your cake. So I would argue that my vanilla cake is fairly optimized for building, but it is fluffy enough. But if you're going to compare the fluffy and delicate texture to that of a Genoese sponge, you're comparing two different things. But that is also to just say, if you're looking for a cake that is fluffy enough that it has structure to it and can be optimized for stacking, as I have done with the cake right here, then yes, that recipe will be good for you. I am Lily, I'm in the UK. I'm not a US based baker at all. And actually, Lily, because we are on the subject here, here's my vanilla cake recipe. I baked this yesterday right on camera. It's the same recipe I use, and that is the cake. Well, I've layered that cake that is going to be made into a cake. And here is the crumb. This is a cold crumb. A cold crumb is going to be tighter, but if you can look closely into the crumb, it should tell you whether it's actually, let's look at it from this cross section. You can tell if we are having a lightly textured cake, right? But with that said, with this recipe, I find that personally, when you compare the structure and texture of this cake, the fluffy delicateness, to that of, say, a white cake wins for me, hands down. But a white cake is difficult for me to derive, especially because I bake a lot and I bake in large scale. So if you're looking for a fluffy cake, right, I will say try different recipes and choose what fits for you. But you also have to be able to tie the cake or recipe you're looking for to your own objectives. What are you looking to achieve? Do you just want a cake that you can design just one single 3-layered 7-inch, 8-inch cake, like a home baked rustic cake, or a cake that should be optimized for decorative elements? That's a question that should influence where you are headed. That is just by the way, and that is Lily. Um, yes, Lily, thank you. White cakes, they are not as hard, but the technique is harder because then you have to make the batter and then you have to whip the egg whites. That just adds another extra layer of work that I do not really fancy undertaking. Do you, um is it Quivettes? Did I get your name right? Right. Do you use cornstarch in baking? No. Quivettes, the reason why I don't use it, cornstarch, in light of the use of cake flour, you can add a bit of cornstarch to, say, plain flour by reducing a spoonful or something, so that it kind of affects how the gluten is produced or something like that, and then helps with a delicate cake. I don't, because in the UK, our self-raising flour is optimized for texture for you anyway. And there are different variations of self-raising flour. It's slightly different from the US brand. The self-raising flour in the UK is spelled S self, okay, SEIL, I can't spell, SELF, and then you have raisin, which is RAI. And the US, you have rising, RI, without the A. The simple difference between the two brands here and there is because you US people, my people out there, you have salt added to your self-rising. In the UK, we don't have salt in our self-raising flour. So it's optimized with rising agents already for you, but doesn't have salt. And that's the clear difference. I've already covered the subject of flour already in the videos I am recommending for Lily. So Lily, check that out. But Quivet, I don't use corn flour, not for baking, but corn flour comes in handy in different recipes. So if say I was using a recipe that requires that, I am sure I would use it, but I haven't needed a recipe that requires that. So I have completely gone against it, and my life is better without it anyway. Okay. But I tell you what, I saw a German chocolate buttercream that actually used corn flour, and I want to try that. I want to try that. So I'll be back talking to you about it. But if you haven't liked the video, it's 3:30 nearly. Please like the video and let's finish the stream. I've been stood here since I think 1:30. So for 3 hours, I've been here trying to teach you how to make a cake. And in between all of that, we've been talking. Lily, I'm on you. If you check my lives, you'll see I'm nearly here every day. Okay. On a live every day. At least I aim to give you up to about 5 videos a week on the lives. That's not always possible because when I schedule my appearances depending on what my baking calendar is. So for instance, next week is going to be a busy one, so I have to kind of tailor it. But I'm here. Look, you'll find me when you need me. Okay, I'm never gone too long, but if you see me disappear, it's because look, my life is taking a toll on me and I need a break from all this chatter. Do you know what it feels like to be talking for 3 hours? Okay? Lily, you're my bestie. You're all out there are my besties because you guys come here and you indulge me and you keep me happy because I'm just living my dream. Okay, Lily, I'm living my absolute dream, talking cakes, doing all things cakes, and also having you guys choose to come and support me. And my simple value proposition is that I am always going to try and give you as much value as you deserve. So today, for instance, we've spoken about how to decorate the cake. That was the main goal, which is what we have achieved. But the other secondary goals we achieved here is discussing the realities of running a business, what you need to do to succeed at a business, just go and fail quickly. We've talked about social media for marketing. It's a whole job, and if you don't like the thing, find a way to like it, and if you lose, it's okay. We've talked about all of that. So if you're just joining us here, do consider subscribing. Do join us here as a family. We support each other. We don't just make cakes. We talk to each other in the chat. We have moderators. There's Nengi, there is Kyle, there is Delaney. Delaney is with a band. She's from Texas. Is it? No. Let me not ruin this for myself. And then there's Amanda from Alabama. No, Lily Flower, I don't do any other craft. Look, I am overwhelmed with cakes enough. I don't want it. I don't even have hobbies. Okay? And my son needs me. Look, honey, I've got to go. Okay? That's the cake we made. That's the cake we made. Beautifully presented on a fondant covered board with piping details. That is all that we need here. I could stay here for the rest of the hour, but life is happening very quickly. So let me go. I will put photographs of the cake when it's all said and done in the community post. Those of you who are asking me questions about the luster dust and everything I used, I'll list them in the description box when I come to optimizing the description box. And when necessary, I'll post photos and other elements on the community page for you. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for joining me, indulging my passions. I will see you in my next. Let's just put the cake here so you can see the cake, and we will say, I'll see you in my next live. Take care.